Right, it's 7 o'clock. Like to call the meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight on this rainy, dark night. It's nice to see so many people in the audience with us, and we're looking forward to your agenda item. Would like to start with oral communications. Persons wishing to address the town council on any subject may do so now. Please note, however, that the council is not able to undertake extended discussions or actions tonight on items not on the agenda. Each speaker's time is limited to 3 minutes. Would you like to come up to the podium?
Dr. Martin Miller, 3350 Alpine Road. I'm opposed to any development at the Dorothy Ford open space that's directly across the street from my home. I object to the initial study and mitigated negative declaration that was first adopted on March 29th, 2023. The use of a negative declaration for years has been used.
Sir, this item is actually on the agenda tonight, and so this portion of the agenda, oral communications, is for items not on the agenda.
Can I just finish?
I'll make an exception right now, but generally speaking, just to educate the community, it's really important that we follow the protocol.
I'll be less than 3 minutes. Negative declaration has for years been used to avoid the statutory considerations mandated by the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. A negative declaration is a written statement that an environmental impact report is not required because the project will not have significant adverse effect or impact on the environment. The use of such a declaration in this case is legally wrong and inexcusable. I and other residents fully intend to litigate the use of negative declaration should this proposal proceed forward with its implementation. For reference, CEQA is intended to inform government decision makers and the public about the potential environmental impacts and effects of proposed activities and to prevent significant avoidable environmental damage. Significant effect is defined in section 15382 of the guidelines as a substantial or potentially substantial adverse change in any of the physical conditions within the area affected by the project, including land, air, water, minerals, flora and fauna, ambient noise, and objects of historic or aesthetic significance. Any number of these categories are being ignored by the proposal under the false protection of the negative declaration. These will be contested in court if necessary. The council should be aware that an action based in CEQA, should it be successful, the town will be responsible for the cost and attorney's fees of the parties bringing this action. Furthermore, it's obvious that my property value and the values of others living on Alpine Road will be severely adversely impacted. CEQA cases have stated that economic or social changes may be considered in determining whether the physical change proposed is significant.
Your time is up, sir.
I oppose this development.
In fairness to people who do follow the protocol, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to cut you off at this point. It's past 3 minutes and this is an item on the agenda.
Just be aware that the town will be liable for any costs.
Thank you. I see no hands raised, other hands raised in the schoolhouse. On Zoom, we have Karen Askey.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Happy 2024. I have a quick public service announcement for residents and staff of Portola Valley. What fun-filled, action-packed event is just 1 month away? Back by popular demand, it's trivia night, brought to you by Parks and Rec. So mark your calendars for Saturday, February 10th from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. and start forming your teams and brush up on that minutia. And stay tuned for more information, and we'd love to see you all there. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Next up, I see Rita Comas.
Hi, thank you for taking my comment. I'm not starting at 3 minutes. Something's wrong with the timer. Okay, now it's at 3 minutes. So those of us that are online did not hear the roll call, but we can see on the dais that everyone is sitting in their seats. I just want to mention that next Monday is Martin Luther King's actual birthday and the holiday. And I also want to mention that here it is, 2024, and I'm back to the same comments about the audit and the finances. Perhaps I've missed something, but I haven't seen any updates on either the status of the audit or the status of the finances. And even though the Planning Commission meeting, the last Planning Commission meeting was canceled, as if the only thing going on in town is the housing element, and the housing element is important, but the safety element is really important, and the electronic communication conversations are really important, and also the evacuation is really important, and we haven't been hearing any updates on those things. And here we are into 2024. We're talking about the building of all of these new building structures, bringing in all of our new and wonderful neighbors. And, you know, I'm just afraid of the bottlenecks that we would wind up having on so many aspects in an earthquake in, you know, at different junctions of our two ways out of our lovely town. And so if we can bring back communications on these different issues to the residents, I know that the town staff is working closer together, but if there's a way for the residents to be in on those conversations in some way, that would be really, really appreciative. Thank you very much. It's 2024. We got a lot going on. Please share that information with us in some form that we can then feel a little bit safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. We have one additional hand up. Dana, come on up in the schoolhouse. All right, we have additional hand up on Zoom, phone number ending in 7562. I believe that might be Carolyn Bertongen.
Great, good evening. Thank you very much for taking my call. I would like to give my minutes to the speaker who did not have a chance to give his full concerns to the town council. But first of all, I want to say this town council has failed to provide basic needs to the residents in Portola Valley. All the money has been spent to the housing element and all the lawyers, and we don't approve that. Palmer Lane is without electricity right now. Luckily, I have batteries. And there's a whole set of issues with the solar batteries and PG&E and all the bureaucrats involved in that too. But please give the first speaker a chance to express what he wanted to say to the town council. That's what we used to in Portola Valley, but cutting him off is not right. Please allow him.
Thank you, Carolyn. I don't see any additional hands up in the schoolhouse or on Zoom. So with that, I will close oral communications. My oversight for not starting with the roll call vote or roll call. Jennifer, should we move to that?
Councilmember Alves.
Here.
Councilmember Hefty. Councilmember Taylor,
Present.
Vice Mayor Haskell. Here, and Mayor Warnikoff.
Here.
We're all in attendance.
Thank you. Thank you. So, and again, apologies for that oversight. All right. Well, now it is my great honor to turn the floor over to Mary Hufty, who will be presenting the Historical Resource Committee Award recognizing respectful restoration of historical properties in Portola Valley. Mary.
Thank you. I was actually hoping that Sarah would do this as her first act as a mayor, but at any rate, I appreciate the honor and I appreciate all of you coming out. And it's been an amazing experience for me to work with the Historic Resource Committee on this. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about what we'll be talking about later, but I won't mention that in terms of structures. They've done a terrific job and they've kept on doing it. They are totally, in science, we'd call it data-based. They actually do their homework, they make their assessments, and they clarify how their decisions are made. So I think we can feel a great deal of thanks and gratitude for all of your work, particularly Nancy, of course, who's been the stalwart here for many years. And just to put it out there for anybody who hasn't read the book, she's got a great book. Everybody should read it. It should be on everybody's coffee table. It's beautiful and it fills us with an understanding of where the character of this town came from. So now I am turning it over to Nancy, and maybe I'll accompany you at the podium so we can shake hands with people. Oh, do we get to shake hands?
COVID.
Are we ready? Well, this evening, I would like to take a few moments for us to talk a little bit about the history of the town. You know, we don't think about it much, but we've inherited this town from people who lived here long ago and from residents who lived here 60 years ago, this year, who voted for incorporation so that our local decisions would be made locally. But in recent decades, we've watched the long, low ranch styles of post-World War II era disappear slowly but inexorably, being replaced by grander, larger residences of the Silicon Valley era. But along with this transition, a few structures remain in our care from much earlier eras, when PV was a place of small farms, estates, taverns, and it's 4 of those historic buildings that we want to focus on tonight. We extend appreciation to the owners of those buildings who have shown respect for the historic integrity of their properties as they've recently made modifications necessary for time and circumstance. So the oldest of these 4 structures is our beloved Roadhouse that dates from the 1850s. It's had several names: Wellness, Fernando, Schenkels, The Wonder. But during all those years, it was owned by a widow, Mary Ann Stanton, whose husband was killed in a horrific train buggy accident. Since the 1950s, it's been officially known as the Alpine Inn. And in the last year, once again, it's been owned by a widow, Molly Alexander. Yet it still clings to that name of Enrico Rosati, or Zotz, and even more affectionately, Zotz. Molly's heirs sold to Deke and Lori Hunter, Jim Kohlberg, Stephanie and Fred Harmon in 2018. They did not turn it into a modern, fancy little boutique restaurant that they might have, but they kept it, they modernized it, but kept their great historic significance of it that we all love. So I thank them and would like to present them with the certificate. If they will please come forward. That will be a certificate to show our appreciation.
Hello.
Something else?
Hey, it's party hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's our pleasure.
Thank you.
So next oldest is a residence that we don't know very much about. It's the home of, was the home of Mary and William Fitzhugh, located at 3 Grove Court. Fitzhugh was a mining engineer. He built the windmill that we all know about, although it was never actually a windmill, it disguised a pump. We can still see stonework that marks its sites. They owned all of Grove Drive, Grove Court, and Stonegate. That was their estate, which they called Kitocton. Well, today, it was in 1947, the Fitzhugh sons sold the estate to realtors for the modern development. And we give special thanks to Crystal and John Chancuti because they converted it into a modern home for today, and yet they maintained the historic ambiance and the feeling of it so that we have that little glimmer of the past on Grove Court. So Crystal, if you will come and receive a plaque. Thank you. Sure. So about that same time, the Jellick family bought the land that has been known for most of a century as the Jellick Ranch. Decades of children made their field trips there to tour an apple farm or to get their Halloween pumpkin. Residents, hundreds of residents stopped by for apples, pears, a chat with Walter Jellick, who was a community institution. And Cindy and Phil White bought that ranch in 2000. They made the very splendid decision not only to maintain the historic name, but to continue tending and even improving the fruit orchards. So we salute them for maintaining that association between the past and the present. And we say thank you very much.
I just want to say something about Nancy. We were painting our house and I got this call from Nancy. She said, Phil, I got to tell you something. I said, what's that? You have the wrong color white in your building. And she was right. And by the way, Cindy and I both want to tell you, in all our years here dealing with the council, we had perfect support. So we'll hope to do the same. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just have to say, because I moved here in 1971 with my parents and they still live here. And then I moved back, of course, to Jellick Ranch in 2000 with Phil. We were here part-time, but full-time later, right after that. And it's been my heart and my soul and my passion to live at Jellick Ranch and to develop it all these years. It's been 23 years. And I feel deeply connected to the wilderness here, the values of this town, the old-fashioned ways of being, and just being able to live on the edge of civilization and wilderness is so magical. And to be a steward of the land and the wildlife as well as history. And actually the entire experience of developing Jellick Ranch was a lot. Over 23 years, we did a lot. And it was pure joy, it really was. And all of our interactions with the town were really positive. I mean, I remember working with Leslie Lambert and Tom Vlasic, and even Bill Lane was here. He wrote us a letter when we first brought the property. And so I have many fond memories. Everybody was in our court and wanted to work with us, and it was a collaborative effort. And thank you. Really, it's deeply touching that you would even recognize us tonight. Thank you.
We hope you keep feeling the same way.
So the newest of these structures is the Mangini Roadhouse, which perhaps you do not know it by that name, but it's the little stone building that's a part of owned by Alpine Hills Tennis and Swimming Club. It was built in 1937 from stones quarried above on the hill, but the building itself was an enhancement of a picnic park that existed from the 19 teens. It was such a magnet for entertainment that hundreds of cars could be parked along Portola Road, sort of like they park at Sots today. And they had a raised dance court, playing fields, barbecue, lots of music. And people came from as far away as San Francisco to party for the weekend. In later years, it was the first PV town hall from 1964 to 1976. And then it became the Windmill Preschool for 17 years. And recently the club has returned it to its original function as a party place. So we honor and thank the Alpine Hills community for maintaining the historic integrity as they have returned the Roadhouse to its original purpose of entertainment. So we have a plaque for the Alpine Hills people as well. Yeah, pleasure. Yeah. So that concludes our little look back into the town history, but I will remind you that this is the 60th anniversary of the incorporation of our town. So you can look forward perhaps to some special events taking place during the whole course of the year. Thank you.
Good. Thank you again, Nancy, and for all the work that went into this and the 3 years that it's taken to get this accomplished. Also, just wanted to say a wonderful reminder to all of us that we've always been a place that the larger community has been able to recreate. So thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to all the award recipients, and thanks again for being here tonight. Thank you, Mary, for bringing this forward. So we'll move on to our next item, which is the proclamation for Carol Bork, honoring her 25 years of service to the town. Unfortunately, Carol is not with us tonight, but I am going to read through the proclamation. Whereas on January 11th, 1999, Carol Bork began her career with the town of Portola Valley in the Planning and Building Department. Carol currently serves as the town's Senior Development Review Technician. And whereas Carol Bork has consistently displayed commitment, strong service, and professionalism in her role, contributing significantly to permit efficiency and effective operations within planning and building. And whereas Carol is recognized for her dedication to providing excellent service to the residents of Portola Valley, ensuring their needs and concerns are addressed in the success of the town. And whereas Carol Bork has demonstrated leadership by providing mentorship and guidance to her colleagues and innovation in her role as she led the transition of digital building permit processing and establishing new systems for permitting volume tracking. And whereas Carol Bork in recent years was promoted to the Senior Development Review Technician role in recognition of her vast contributions, professional development, and oversight of the permitting process, as well as her strong relationships with all who work with her. And whereas Carol Bork has devoted 25 years of dedicated service to the town of Portola Valley, and her contributions have significantly enhanced the planning and building department. The Portola Valley staff are grateful for her knowledge, work ethic, and teamwork. And now, therefore, I, Sarah Warnikoff, as mayor of the town of Portola Valley, on behalf of the council, staff, volunteers, and residents of Portola Valley, convey our heartfelt thanks and congratulations to Carol on 25 years of service. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the town of Portola Valley to be affixed hereto on this 10th day of January, 2024. And Carol, we all look forward to congratulating you when we see you around town center and throughout the community in the days and weeks to come. Congratulations.
And if I may, Mayor, thank you for that. Thank you, Council, for recognizing Carol Bork and her incredible 25 years. As mentioned, she was not able to come tonight, but this is recorded. So anything anyone would like to say, more than welcome to, and she will see it. We'll make sure she sees it. And just acknowledging 25 years, I don't think I've done anything for 25 years, whether it's brush my teeth or take a shower. consistently for 25 years. So just an amazing accomplishment, her commitment to the city. And we recognized her today as staff. We had some cake and at an all staff today, and took a time out for her as well during the day. And she was very grateful for this proclamation and very grateful that we took the time out to acknowledge her. So thank you.
That's great. And we typically wouldn't take a public comment right on a presentation, but given the exceptional 25 years of service, I want to make sure that Carol is appreciated. I see one hand up on Zoom, Rita Gomez.
Hi, thank you. I just want to say something about Carol. When I first came to the town looking for a property to buy in, I guess it was 2009, the whole staff was just so helpful through the whole process, but especially, Leslie and Carol, and Leslie's no longer working for the town, but Carol was just an exceptional person. And then when I did purchase a property and went through the whole building process, I think I had Taylor the day after all my permits were finally passed. It was a real town effort, and Carol was with me through the whole process of the building, and and my house is almost 10 years old, and it's always been a joy to see her, to work with her, to ask questions. Not everyone in town has been through a building process or a renovation process, but if you do get a chance, please just, not while she's busy, but please just say hi to her, because she's really a wealth of knowledge about all kinds of things, and a joy to work with.
Thank you, Rita. One additional hand up here in the schoolhouse. Dana, would you like to come forward?
Anna Breen. I been on the ASUC for a long time, and Carol was pretty much our staff person. And I really missed her, in the last couple of years that we're not having meetings. She's just uber professional. And I also have a lot of meetings with her in the schoolhouse. Anyway, she's been solid and fun. Sometimes Carol's always very reserved for a while, but when you kind of get her in the back room, she can kick it around. So I'm sorry you're not here, Carol, because I wanted to cheer you on. Anyway, congratulations, Carol.
Thank you, Dana. One additional hand raised in the schoolhouse.
I've worked with Carol. She's very professional. I'd also like to point out the great loss of Leslie Lambert and Cheyenne Brown. I've worked real closely with Cheyenne Brown, and she's missed.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any additional, one additional hand up on Zoom. Kim?
Hi, this is Kim Giuliacci, Fire Marshal with Woodside Fire, and I wanted to say congratulations to Carol. Usually you get feedback and comments from residents, but I felt it was important as a jurisdiction to recognize Carol as well, because Carol is made to be customer service oriented with residents, but it doesn't mean she has to be the same with people that like myself, who works for a fire district. And I have to say, since I started last year, every time I've had any interaction with her, she's always been very helpful, very prompt. I've never actually met her in person. It's been through a lot of different emails and lost emails and buried emails that we've helped each other out with a lot of things, especially when I was new, and she clarified a lot. But I just wanted to thank her for always making me feel welcomed. Even if I messed up on something, she didn't feel like she didn't point it out. She was just very helpful in everything. So congratulations to you on your 25 years, and thank you.
So nice. Thank you, Kim. The next hand up on Zoom is Christy.
Hey, Carol, I just wanted to say we really appreciate working with you. You're always very thorough. You're a quick responder to all questions, and I want to thank you after living here 25 years and enjoyed working with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Christy. All right, with that, I don't see any additional hands in the schoolhouse or on Zoom, so we will close that portion of the agenda and move on to the town manager report. Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. Please do.
So I remember when Carol first got here, and I think the residents have said it well, but Carol has been the epitome of professionalism in my experience. I've never interacted with Carol, but she wasn't extremely professional. And I appreciate that. You know, we're a small town. It's easy just to sort of take the town for granted, and Carol's never done that. She's really been a beautiful professional the whole time. So again, thank you, Carol, and congratulations on your 25 years.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I just want to say, I first worked with Carol in probably 2009 before I was a council member, I think even before I was an ASCC member, and on our project. And I agree, she was professional, she was thorough, she was exacting but also patient. And Carol, we've really appreciated all the work you've done, and I've worked with you now for 15 years between ASCC and council. And thank you and congratulations, and we look forward to seeing more of you. Take care.
So I think it's important to take a moment and really think about what that means, 25 years for the town. And what makes our town special is that we have people who just go about their business, appreciating what they're doing for the town fits into the big picture. And Carol's always seemed to come over as professional, but very efficient. And my one time working with her on a planning matter, very seamless. And it goes by so quickly, you almost don't have the chance to thank her. And I think it's really great to see her being thanked in this way after such a long period of time. So thank you, Carol. We really appreciate you.
I'm just going to ditto and say thank you, Carol. You know how much I appreciate all the work we've done together over the last 25 years.
And the one additional thing I'll add kind of to bookend it is, you know, one thing it seems like a lot of us have in common is Carol's one of the first people you meet in town when you come here and you're working on your building and or your home, whether it's something small or something large. And I have that same shared experience with Carol as well when we first moved here about 17 years ago. And so it seems like, you know, whether you're working with her as a community member or a council member or a colleague on the staff, you know, we've all had such positive experiences, and that says quite a lot to do that over, as we've said, a you know, quarter century essentially. So congratulations, Carol. And with that, I will move on, and I apologize. Sharif, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Some short comments for today. I just wanted to acknowledge Happy New Year to everyone. I hope everyone had a good holiday and break. We are back at Town Hall in full swing. And obviously, one of the main things on the agenda tonight that we were anticipating was the housing element. And I'll be the first one to tell you, we're going through the 5 stages of grief over the housing element. We are a little deflated, but at the same time, cautiously optimistic. And John Biggs is here along with Adrian to give an update of where we're at, but we're still cautiously optimistic on where we're going. But we are, you know, as we mentioned, going through the emotions, and we'll get there. And I know we'll get there as a group, and I know us as a community, all of us are looking forward to adopting the housing element moving forward. And so we'll have an update for you tonight. Also, just wanted to announce to the community to encourage you to volunteer. Part of our discussion tonight is on our volunteerism, our committees. In the first week of February, we're doing a poll with council to set up the date so that you can interview for Planning Commission and ASCC vacancies. I believe we have 2 in each commission. And so we'll be setting that up. There's a 3-week period where we post for those positions. So we encourage the community to apply. You'll see that in very short order. And we also have some vacancies in committees. We reached out to all of the committees to see what vacancies are out there, so we can also shore up those. That doesn't go through council, obviously, but the other piece requires that special session, if you will, in February. And so just encourage the community on that. Most importantly, we are continuing our search for our building and planning director. We did a soft launch, if you will, in December, where it's been posted on our website in November, December. So that's been posted. However, we're going to do a much larger endeavor now that we're in the new year and after the holidays. And our biggest intention, obviously, is to have John Biggs see us through with this housing element. And as he sunsets out at the end of February-ish, what we're calling it, based on the limitations on his role, is that we have a very clear transfer to that new building and planning director. And so you'll see that posted on various websites and trade groups, and we'll be reaching out to hire our next building and planning director, hopefully in the month of February. Along with that, and the new year, we're also transitioning Cindy. Cindy will become our admin services manager, as you're all aware. As we continue with Christian Company and our priorities with the audit and with all the different pieces of getting caught up, what I'm going to do moving forward is I'm confident now that we not only have Christian Company, we have Cindy on board to help us, but because the finances are a priority, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert myself more as the finance director here in Portola. And what I'm anticipating doing is giving about 15 to 20% of my time as director of finance, working along with Cindy and our staff and Christian Company to get us up to speed, if you will. And that's on a temporary basis to get us caught up, so that once we get the recruitment for building and planning director and those interviews set, I can then post for a director of finance and actually post for a permanent director. The original intent was to have an interim director of finance, but that didn't quite pan out. I'm sure the holidays had something to do with that as well, as far as timing goes. So I will be basically involving myself much more in finance and getting us on track. And I'm very grateful that Cindy's here with us. We have a full complement of staff, and Krish has been phenomenal working with us and getting those deliverables. And so in very short order, I'll be coming back to council with set dates of we're going to achieve this by this date, so that you can see some of those milestones that we do as a group with staff, with Cindy, and with Christian Company. The other piece that we're working on is we're working on a date in February for a council goal setting session, so we can get back into that cadence of annual goal setting sessions for council. That is an open public session that we'll schedule during the day, and so we'll be polling council for that. So people look out in that. The intention is probably the last 2 weeks of February that we would have a goal setting session where we can talk about the goals, and we're looking for a facilitator, and we're working with discussions on facilitators to facilitate that for us as a group. And just the last piece is, I've been here, I think 3 months, 4 months, and we're still in the change phase. You've heard my taglines of reset, refocus, and now we're in the harder part, which is the restructure part. And so we're evaluating all our positions, we're moving positions around, we're getting new staff, and that's not always easy. And change is not always easy, not only for staff, but for the community. But I'm very confident that we'll get back up to date, we'll get our house in order, and then we can come back and really start focusing on our larger items. So we haven't lost sight of fire prevention, safety element, all the other things that we're talking about as a group, and we'll get there. And you've heard me say from day one, we can't make any large decisions without our finances in order, and that still remains the priority. So, thank you for your support moving forward, and we'll continue moving along.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharif. We will move on to consent agenda. Is there any public comment on any items on the consent agenda? I don't see any hands raised in the schoolhouse, but on Zoom is Rita Comas.
Hi, just a quick one. The one that's concerning Westridge Drive. This was already bid last year. And if anyone has driven onto Westridge Drive from Alpine Road, you'd probably have to really hold on to your steering wheel so that your car doesn't veer off the road because of how poor the road is. And it was, I think it was 2 years ago this was supposed to happen, and it didn't happen last year. And I know we're tight on money, but it seems like we're spending at the same time a lot of money and making a lot of money with all the building and these big trucks that are coming up Westridge Drive starting at 5:30 almost every morning during the week, the Monday through Friday. So please make this some kind of priority. Most of the residents come through Westridge. Almost all of the trucks come through Westridge. So please make this a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. One additional hand up, phone number ending in 7562.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Once again, I'm asking town council to be very vigilant of the warrant list. How many times have we asked you to understand the fees of consultants? So many consultants, and we have no clue who's doing what and when. And we have asked you to be more precise. We have asked you to ask for details. One of the issues is, for instance, consultant Krupka. Once again, he has a fee on the warrant list, and we have no clue what he's doing. We have not seen any evidence of this. Another issue that I want to bring up is, for instance, we have Cruise Strategies. On a monthly basis, we pay $625, and they're supposed to inform town council about the bills. If you guys are informed of it, fine, but we have not seen anything of that. And there's many examples of that. If indeed we are in a financial bind, which we have mentioned to town council for several years, and to the 3 new council members who were elected, we asked for accountability and transparency. And I think right now it's time that we see that. We're willing to help you, but you have to help us in those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. One additional hand up in the schoolhouse.
For the town, my attorney's assessment has been, in the last 31 months, $380,000. $380,000 have been spent on consultants regarding the housing element. And we don't have any final housing element yet. And then please let me know when I can continue my comments regarding the housing element.
Thank you. No more hands up in the schoolhouse or on Zoom, so I will bring it back to council. Is anybody interested in pulling an item on the consent agenda? Looking around, I don't see, would anybody like to make a motion? Oh, excuse me, sorry, Mary, I missed you.
Well, I think the warrant list has some things that I wanted to comment on, and I have done a little homework beforehand, so I don't feel that I'm completely in the dark about it. Cotton Shires.
So you want to pull it?
Well,
Okay,
the
all
warrant
right.
list.
Would somebody like to make motion to approve 5A, B, or I'm sorry, 5A, C, and D?
So moved. So second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Alves,
Aye.
Councilmember Hefty,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Haskell.
Aye.
Oops.
Aye.
And Mayor Warnikoff.
Aye.
Thank you.
Do you want to answer for me? Mary, you'd like
Well,
to pull?
I had two things. One, because we cut the big check for the sheriff's department, I wanted to know a little bit more what we paid for. And the other I wanted to find out about was Cotton Shires. We discussed some of that. I continue to think that the Geologic Safety Committee should have some information about those geologic findings as they come out. So those are my two comments. Questions.
The specific question, let's take them one at a time.
One is the sheriff's contract. What's going on with the sheriff's contract?
Well, we need to just stay within this agenda item. So this is about the payment
The payment. What is the
specifically.
payment for? What was the payment for? Thank you.
So I can answer that. That's our regular bill for the sheriff contract. I believe it's 1/4 of the year. That has not changed. We have not signed a new contract with the sheriff.
Thank you.
I can give updates at a later time of kind of our conversations with the sheriff are ongoing.
Your second question, Mary?
Second question had to do with Cotton Shire as the town geology consultant. And if residents can have access, in particular the Geologic Safety Committee, to the information that is being used.
So
in that
I just have to say that's also not within the warrant. The warrant is really just about the bill.
Okay, well, there it is. It's a lot. We paid for it. I'd like to know what we got for it.
I believe Cindy's on the line. If not, I can reference the email that I had sent earlier regarding the Conshire payment. I can look that up. Just,
Yeah, it was largely contract.
it's a pass-through for their costs for residents, basically what it is.
Do you have any further questions, Mary? Would you like to make a motion to approve your item 5B? Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Alves.
Aye.
Councilmember Hefty.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Haskell.
Aye.
And Mayor Warnikoff.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will move on to our regular agenda items. The first one being the introduction of the ordinance to update the animal control chapter of municipal code. And I believe, Catherine, you are bringing this one forward.
Yes, thank you. And I am grateful to have assistance from two folks who are on Zoom. First is Lori, and I'm going to get your last name incorrect, but Lori is with the county. She is the Chief Animal Control Officer. And she is with us tonight, as well as my colleague, Marlene Dellinger. She's one of my associates. And Marlene, I am grateful to because she actually worked with Lori over the past year on the county's update to its animal control ordinance. So between the two of them, they're quite expert in this field. And I don't have the webinar linked up yet, but Jennifer, can you confirm that Lori is on the line in case of
I see her.
questions? Okay, wonderful. So I'll just go ahead and introduce the item, and then I'm actually going to hand this off to Lori to provide a little bit more technical detail in terms of what is involved here. So I'll just first, as background, the town and actually all 20 cities and towns in San Mateo County contract with the county for animal control services. And I actually attached that contract to the staff report if you want to look at that. As part of that contract, there is an understanding that each jurisdiction will adopt a substantively similar animal control ordinance as the counties. The county just recently in December updated its animal control ordinance with input from the cities in the county. Like I mentioned, Marlene was actually part of the team. There are 5 city attorneys that worked with Lori and her team on the comprehensive update. And the county's ordinance is going into effect basically, I think next month. And so they have asked all of the 20 cities to likewise update the ordinances so that they can have uniform enforcement. So if you're wondering, gosh, we've got a lot on our plate right now, why is this coming forward? It's coming forward at the request of the county to make sure that they can, implement the updates uniformly. I'll let Lori sort of talk to some of the details of the updates, which were sort of a modernization of the code and one thing that I did want to just note, it's in the staff report, but one thing that this update does is it clarifies the definition of a dangerous animal versus a vicious animal. And this is important if an animal is ever involved in a dog bite situation with either another dog or a human, that can be that determination and those factors that goes into whether it's labeled as vicious or dangerous can result in a determination that the dog needs to be euthanized. And so it really is important to get it right. And that was one of the key updates that this code does. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Lori, and then you can see if there's any questions for us as staff. So thank you. Thank you, Lori, for being here.
You're very welcome, and thank you for asking me to attend your meeting, Madam Mayor and Town Council, Town Manager, and Town staff. As mentioned, this was quite the undertaking, and we took several years to work on this ordinance. It started with looking at different jurisdictions throughout our area, Contra Costa, Alameda, Marin, even the state code, to compare our code to those different jurisdictions. And we spent time really going through our code and an ordinance and making sure that, number one, it was easy to read for not only the residents, but the Humane Society that would be enforcing it, but that we, cleared up some of the areas that we had heard, some complaints about or people not understanding. So we did a lot of that. The high points, the rabies vaccination for dogs and cats, the state changed their ordinance to be 3 months. We will now mirror that. So a dog or a puppy and a kitten can be vaccinated at 3 months. The vicious and dangerous, we spend a lot of time on. Currently, if a dog bites twice, 2 puncture wounds, the Humane Society could designate that dog as vicious and bring forward a hearing. We felt that that was too low of a threshold. So we've increased the threshold for vicious, and we spent a lot of time looking at severe injury. So that would be maiming, multiple sutures, scars, muscle tears, bones breaking. That's a vicious dog. A dangerous dog is one that has had an incident with another dog or a human, but can be maintained on a permit. That is most of the dogs that we find in our county under dangerous animal permit. Right now, we have about 70 dogs on dangerous animal permit. The other thing we changed was the length of time that the dog is on the permit. And we kind of followed your ordinance. Yours is, I think, 2 years, 3 years right now. We are going with 3 years. So a dog that's on a permit for a dangerous hearing violation would be on the permit for 3 years and come off the permit as long as they obey all the laws, they are licensed, they keep current on their vaccines. So we really looked and thought, the dogs go through training, the people understand the consequences, and we could safely remove them from the permit. The other thing we did is we removed the language of a dog residing in a household with a child under 18 years of age that's dangerous. We have not had any juveniles or children injured in the home from a dangerous dog. So we felt that that was very restrictive, and most times the dog owner would file a writ in court trying to get that overturned. So the last thing I want to talk about is administrative citations. We've added another tool in the tool belt for the Humane Society. Right now, they have 2 options. They can issue an infraction, which is like a traffic citation, or a misdemeanor. By adding the administrative citation, it is a fine. It doesn't clog up the traffic courts, and it's a much easier process, not only for the resident, but as well as the enforcing agency. So we took a lot of time and put together an ordinance we feel will benefit not only the residents, but the animals, as well as the Humane Society that is enforcing the ordinance. And at this time, I'd love to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
I just had one quick one.
Sure.
The cover note says that one of the changes was to provide an administrative hearing will be heard by an individual hearing officer. What is that change, and is there an appeal process from that individual? How does that work?
So currently, we have hearing officers that are contracted through the county. They are independent. They hear the hearing for the first time the day of the hearing. The owner comes in, tells their side of the story, so does the victim, and the hearing officer delivers a decision. If the owner disagrees with the decision, they can file a writ of mandate in the Superior Court. But I do have to tell you that the hearing officers really listen to both sides. They review all of the evidence, listen to the witnesses before they make a decision, and they really pay attention to mitigating circumstances.
And this is Marlene. I can speak to part of that question there. You asked about what the change was there. So in the current version of the town's code, rather than having an individual hearing officer like most other jurisdictions in the county do, for these here to preside over these hearings, there's a provision that there will be a town panel of a few different individuals who will preside over that hearing. And that town panel, under the current version of the code, consists of the mayor, the town administrator, and one council member. And so this is a change to maybe a more standard hearing officer format for those hearings.
Thank you.
And if I could, every city uses the hearing officers with the exception of your town currently.
Any other questions? All right, I will move to public comment, and I do not see any hands in the schoolhouse or on Zoom. And so, oh, one popped up. I believe this is Carolyn Bertongen. Carolyn?
Just wanted to tell you, as Portola Valley residents appreciate, we try to communicate with the residents, and if that is not resolved, we involve the town, which we have done in the past. So I hope you will continue the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. And I don't see any other hands in the schoolhouse or on Zoom, so I will close oral communications and bring it back for discussion if there is any discussion amongst the council. Jeff?
Well, I want to thank Lori and the county for their deep dive into this and what's in front of us. 8 or 9 years ago, I was part of one of those panels for a dangerous dog. It's difficult, a little awkward, and I'm glad that we are now following the practice of the county and having someone who's really experienced in this do it, because it was a little awkward because I knew the people involved, and it was just a little, I didn't really, I don't know enough about I didn't feel like I was really qualified to be part of it. So I'm glad we've got someone here who's experienced doing it. So I think this is a great improvement. So I support this.
That's great. Any other discussion? This is just, well, I believe I closed oral communications. So this is just the first reading. So at this point.
Correct. So this is the first reading. The motion, should you choose to make one, would be to introduce the ordinance, waive the first reading. The language is here in the staff recommendation. And then if it passes, it would come back for a second reading 2 weeks from now, or actually probably the next meeting is maybe 3 weeks from now. But in any event, at your next regular meeting, it will be on typically the consent calendar for second reading.
Oh, I did have a comment. Is that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. We are in a unique situation. Don't like to use the word unique because there are other communities that are in similar one, but we are definitely, when it comes to vicious animals and so forth, we are in a unique situation because we are in a wildfire urban interface. We do have the presence of predators as well as dogs that actually work for us, service dogs who guard our places and our livestock, etc. So when reading this, I wondered if there was a way to modify the code to add a language that recognized the unique needs of our animals to be able to cope with their situation. And in particular, I think free play and having a sense of how to deal with other dogs and other animals, including horses, that all that needs to and requires a different level of sophistication among the animals. The big problem we have, of course, is that we have a lot of dogs coming into our open spaces, and they don't know about the wild animals and the horses and things. And so there's a chance for misinterpretation and miscommunication among dogs. And the only way I could think of, I'm not going to change this because I understand we can't be part of the county without it. But could we have stipulation or our own sort of version of what it means to have animals in our kind of community? So that was one thing. I'm sure it would take a lot of work, maybe more than we need. But I think it's interesting that we've sort of we've lost a little bit of, continue to lose it. And I greatly appreciate Jeff pointing out that it wasn't comfortable, and I'm sure it wasn't. But it does get us out of the driver's seat yet again, and the county into the driver's seat. So there's so many incidents where this is happening now, and who am I as a small town elected official to question any law, ordinance, or suggestion of any county agency or federal agency? But it doesn't seem to completely apply to us, this ordinance. So on that note, that's only a comment. It's not a question. I just find it of interest that we continue to lose the authority of a small town to county and larger agencies. That's it.
I guess following on that point, I have a question for Mary. Are you looking for a change? Bottom line?
Bottom line, I wanted to take the service out of that, but I don't think I can do it. I mean, I think I'm happy. I mean, I think we have to leave it. And my only thought was that we could have a paragraph that sort of talks specifically about the way our animals interact with wildlife and what we expect from visiting dogs and things like that, which is sort of different.
Mary, would it be that the standard for vicious versus dangerous should consider, among other things, the fact that we are in the WUI?
Right.
Like, is that the concept? And I guess the question to the county, or the author, or the experts we have, is that inherent? And is there a means to recite that without stopping the process? Because we definitely appreciate all the work and think this is a thoughtful work product.
Yeah.
If I could ask a clarifying question, are you speaking to dogs off leash, or are you talking about the dangerous and vicious animal section?
Not to put too fine a point on it, but dogs off leash, the main reason your dogs can't be off leash here is because they'll get eaten.
Well, it's against the
And
law.
besides the law, but I mean, voice control is very important if for animals, and also that's a great advantage of having the fencing law and the restraining law for dogs. But that's a specific and slightly different. There's something called One Health. I don't know. We have a great group of experts here, and you're nodding your head, and you're the first person I've mentioned this to who's nodded their head. So I appreciate it. One Health is a CDC initiative to integrate health between animals, the nosocomial, the zoonotic diseases, et cetera, and make clear what is healthy and what is not healthy, so we don't continue to work on sort of myths about what constitutes a danger in a community, et cetera. So I was hoping that part of this discussion would come down to hearing a little bit more about how your organizations interact with One Health, and whether that's something that we could add to our armamentarium to understand better how we should be dealing with issues of it between animals, wildlife, and people.
I'll take the two questions separately. I'll start with the leash law and the voice command. Yeah, leash law is a law. It's enacted for the safety of not only animals, but people. And we see in the news every day where people said, my dog's never done that before. My dog's always been perfect. It walks right beside me. And then the next thing you know, a child's attacked or livestock or wildlife. So even if someone feels they have voice control, we really want the leash on that animal, whether it's in Portola Valley, that's rural, Woodside, La Honda. We have several areas that have the same landscape as Portola Valley. So anyone coming to Portola Valley to visit needs to have their dog on a leash. As far as One Health, I have 2 veterinarians that work at the health department, and we provide services for lower income and the unhoused. And we really focus on One Health. We pay attention to zoonotic diseases. When there was the recent respiratory outbreak in dogs, we paid attention to that. We did the research to see if that was something that could transfer to humans. So we really look at that human-animal bond and pay attention to the animals in the community. But I agree with you. The more we can educate our public on how dogs should behave in rural areas because of the wildlife and the livestock, I agree with. And if that's something I can do in the county and put it on our website and promote it, I will absolutely do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Mary, does that satisfy your question and comments? Okay, thank you. I'm unclear. Do we need to take a motion on waiving the first reading, or what is the exact motion?
I'll just
on?
read I'll read the motion.
Okay, great.
language.
Thank you.
The motion would be to introduce and waive the first reading of the ordinance, which repeals and replaces chapter 6.04 animal control of the Portola Valley Municipal Code to clarify existing definitions, enact additional requirements for animal control, and effectively revise animal control service fees. It's a mouthful.
That is. Thank you very much for doing that.
I'm going to make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Councilmember Alves.
Aye.
Councilmember Hefty.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Haskell.
Aye.
Mayor Warnikoff.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to regular agenda item 6B, which is dissolve and restructure certain advisory committees. And Sharif, this is your item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Much of this work, as you know, and as stated in the memo, has been the work of Patty Dews, and I wanted to thank Patty. And Patty graciously has agreed to come and give us some context of how we got here and some of the steps that we're asking to take tonight. And I also wanted to thank Catherine, because Catherine was heavily involved in the legalities and what we can and can't do as a town and as a committee. And I wanted to thank you for all your review. Patty.
Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. You know, Sharif, you can start your 25 years of showering today if you want. Yeah. A little over a year ago, I think it was, Craig Taylor and Sarah Warnikoff formed a subcommittee from the town council to address certain issues facing our committees. Committee handbook is severely outdated. We have 17 committees, 2 commissions. Takes a lot of staff time, a lot of committee time. And it's hard to get volunteers in this town for a number of reasons. And the chairs came together, pretty much had an idea of at least one thing that was causing people to hesitate to step up and volunteer. And that was some of the restrictions required by the Brown Act. It was determined through some discussion that we could transition some of the committees to report under the oversight of the town manager, not the town council. This would allow us to be able to pull back on some of the more restrictive requirements of the Brown Act. Now, this is not, there's some things that this is not intended to do. It is not intended to reduce the number of committees. It is not intended to create a second-class citizen of less valuable committees. What it is intended to do, though, is to give the existing committees more flexibility in being able to attract volunteers, increase resident interaction, and do their business. You can see from the items that were included in the agenda, we've created a table of components of committee business, committee interaction, and define what would be the components of a Brown Act committee, which we're now calling the Town Council Committee. The middle column is the Town Manager Committee. We've also created a separate type of group, so to speak. This is not perfect. This is a draft that we put together. It's something that will evolve over time. We'll work and try and perfect it, but we believe it's in good condition to move forward. It's important to note that even if a committee moves to town manager versus town council, all meetings will still be public. All agendas will still be published ahead of the meeting. All committees will still be required to allow public comments, and all committees will still be required to have a quorum to vote on any issue. What this does do is allow committees to have members attend by Zoom instead of in person at the schoolhouse. Those committee members will then count towards the quorum. Doesn't happen today. It's difficult to get a quorum for some of the committees. Per chair discretion, committees can talk about things that the public brings up during the meeting that might not be under the agenda. They can't vote on those items. They can certainly have an open discussion, maybe answer questions. And members can talk between meetings. Kind of a novel concept, but you know, they can talk between meetings. They can't vote on anything. They have to bring it to the meeting, but they can talk. They can try and get business done. So some committees were excluded from this proposal based on the fact that they have a connection to the general plan or to the municipal code. Some committees opted out because they felt that some of their charters were so visible, so to speak, to the community, things like finance and safety, that they didn't want to create any kind of issues about visibility or transparency. I think over time we'll see that the town manager committees are just as transparent and visible as town council committees. Logistically, all these committees can continue to meet. They can continue to do what they're doing as we work through kind of this decommissioning and recommissioning process behind the scenes where the, you know, the sausage is made. You know, my name's on the resolution, which is fine. Well, sort of, but I assure you, I have at least 9 committees and chairs standing right beside me and in support of, they think this will make our committees ultimately more effective. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you so much, Patty. I just wanted to also add, as we mentioned, Patty's probably covered 90% of everything that we wanted to cover. But this is a committee-driven request. This isn't a town manager-driven request. This isn't a council-driven request. This is really coming from the committees. And I understand the devil's in the details, and we do need to work some of these things out. What also has been highlighted in this process is the need for an updated committee handbook. And so we're committed to revamping and updating the committee handbook. I am more than welcome, and I'm encouraging that we have a committee handbook group to come together and help us redo that committee handbook. I'm not going to do that. Staff is not going to redo the committee handbook. That needs to come from the committees. And so we're looking forward to revamping that. The Brown Act, and this is coming from Catherine too, is that the Brown Act is a requirement of legislative bodies. It is not a requirement of groups that are appointed by staff or advised staff. At the end of the day, whether you're a Brown Act committee or non-Brown Act committee, you're an advisory committee. And so I think there's this misconception in the community that if you're Brown Act, you're fancier or have more responsibilities or more, and that's not necessarily the case, whether you're Brown Act or not Brown Act. I truly support allowing the committees to be more flexible. I really do believe this will enhance the committee's ability to recruit folks if we're able to Zoom from home or able to travel or able to do things. Brown Act becomes inhibitive, and Brown Act is here for a reason. But when it comes to these committees, I think it will certainly enable some of that flexibility. And as Patty mentioned, what happens tomorrow? basically nothing in a big picture. The committees that have a meeting, whether it's next week or tomorrow, will continue to have those meetings. They don't get disbanded, the dates don't change. I'm not looking to make any changes as town manager. And as Patty mentioned, they still post their agendas, they still take minutes, they have action items. What I've requested as town managers, I obviously don't have the ability to meet with 16 committees on a regular basis. So what I'm asking for is action items of their meeting so I can then see that and then take action as needed as town manager and as their voice. There still need a quorum to vote. And then I certainly am empowering and enabling the committees to continue with their new member voting and their new membership. That'll come from the committee. They will vote on new members as needed. It'll come to me basically as a rubber stamp, I would think 99% of the time. I'm not interested in being the one that makes the final decision, if you will, for committee members. That's on the committee themselves. And so we do need to work on some of the details as we move forward, but the committees continue, we continue. And then the biggest piece is I'm committed to come back. And I know the ordinance says 6 months, but I'm committed to come back at the second meeting in February to say where we are, what we've done, and give an update to the community on these committees moving forward. And then I think in the next weeks to come, I can work with Patty and the committees and we can talk about a committee group. Doesn't have to be a Brown Act or non-Brown Act, but a committee group to help us update the committee handbook, because that's obviously needed as we move forward. So that's basically our piece for tonight. There are the committees listed that have the desire to be decommissioned, if you will. I think in the actual resolution, there was an oversight that the EPC was left out. The motion, if you were so inclined, would be to please include EPC in that.
Thank you, Sharif and Patty again. Questions from the council?
Well, and basically, Patty mentioned committees that are part of the general plan, and Historic Resources is a committee that's part of the general plan. It has a whole section of the general plan, Historic Resources, and it's in the general plan. I wonder if legally we can take it, we can convert it to a group.
So the reason that we excluded some committees is because any committee that's appointed by council needs to be Brown Act. And so I'm not familiar with the language that you referenced in the general plan. If the general plan does designate a historic resources committee, then we should look at that. But if it's a general discussion of historic resources and their policies around historic resources, that would be different, and that would not impact the ability of the Historic Resources Committee to transition. On the other hand, like Planning Commission, ASCC, those are designated in our Muni Code actually, and for the Planning Commission and state law, that they are appointed by council. So those are, that's the reason that those commissions were not considered for this action.
And then the second question I had was around whether this is going to give a way that residents can feel more useful to staff. In other words, is some of the intent just not to give advice, but to actually put these people to work? As manager committees, can you actually utilize them for some of the issues we have with staffing, et cetera?
My understanding is that the objective of the committees are not changing, which is they are all continue to be advisory committees.
Now, the Trails and Path doesn't necessarily feel that way. I mean, is that true? The charter is that? How is the charter going on Trails and Paths? Don't they actually do some physical work?
Sometimes they do, and then there's the Public Works Committee that comes out and helps during storms, for example.
They get a lot out of our residents. So somehow I feel like that is something we should talk about. That it shouldn't just be advisory. It shouldn't be just people sitting around trying to tell everybody else what to do.
I guess I don't know that
Part of the solution.
it's That, I guess I'm just wondering if that's getting beyond the scope of what this agenda item is. I hate to be so bureaucratic, Mary, but getting into, you know, the charters of the various committees is not what's on the agenda. It's really,
Sure.
the,
fine.
okay. Are there any other questions, Judith?
Yeah. It's a variation on Mary's, which is, are we being asked tonight to dissolve and then reconstitute as a town manager committee? And then the rules will be determined whether in handbook or other, because we currently have charters for these committees, right? So if we dissolve them, then what happens tomorrow? Does the charter go away and we have to start from scratch? Or do we look to the charter and replace it to be consistent with a town manager committee when the opportunity arises? How does that work?
I'll take a stab at that, and then maybe Sri, feel free to jump in. So the action for this evening, the resolution is set up to dissolve the committees. The second part of it is to require the town manager to report back to the council regarding the status of restructuring the committees. And there's I want to be really careful to put a pin on this point that the council is not directing the town manager to reconstitute the committees, because that would basically turn them into Brown Act committees. So really, the council does need to be hands off with respect to the committees. But the town manager has, provided lots of information in the staff report about what his plans are. And the idea of this reporting back is, to go through, I guess, with all the details about, well, they all have charters right now. Is Sharif proposing to make any changes to those charters, or will those continue on? The number of members of the committee, those types of things, I suspect will stay as they are. Tomorrow, the town manager does have the discretion with this action, though, to take a look at those and make, any changes as he sees fit.
Okay. The lack of recordings or the optionality of recordings versus minutes. One of the comment letters, I think, accurately observed that the minutes, if they are action items, are terse and without context, and that the public has increasingly moved toward relying on recordings. Maybe there's an artificial intelligence intermediary approach. What is the intent here? Because and I'll save it for discussion, but are we going to lose visibility into what these committees are doing? And if not, how do you see that working?
I don't have an answer for that tonight. And so I don't know if Patty has anything to add regarding recordings, but I don't think I can report back on how we're going to handle that moving forward.
Who's going, when you say the handbook, is the handbook supposed to apply to town council committees and town managers, or are you now starting to segregate them out?
I think that's one thing that's going to need to be worked on in terms of updating it to clarify that, right now, all of them are Brown Act committees and town council committees. And so an update will have to look at that issue and likely clarify which ones are town council committees and which ones are not.
So it's possible that you end up with one handbook for a town council committee that looks like an updated version of what we've got, most likely, and something entirely different for a town manager.
That is possible. And I would also just, I think it is important to keep in mind that the town manager committee, would be under the jurisdiction of the town manager. And so it's likely that if there were two separate ones, that the council would not be approving the town manager.
Right. Yeah. Right. That was implicit. Issue resolution. As needed, chair to town council liaison or town manager for the town council committee. For the town manager committee, as needed. I don't know what that means. Chair to town manager, okay. To town council, if town manager and staff do not recommend. So it's discretionary whether it goes to town council, is how I read that. if there's stuff?
It can be discretionary, but what we had discussion with Patty and I've had discussion with others is that my commitment as town manager, I think I would put this in writing in the handbook, is that when the committee and the town manager are in disagreement, I would still bring that to council if there was a motion. If we wanted a green piece of paper and I wanted it to be red, I would state in the staff report, staff does not recommend this color, we recommend that color, so that both sides of the issue would be seen, if you will. And so that was kind of the intent to say, at some point, if there's disagreement, we would still state the case of both, so that the voice of the committee is not lost. It's not that I'm saying, nope, I'm not bringing this, I don't agree, and it dies there per se. So I think that would be something that would be highlighted in the new handbook as we move forward.
And one of my last questions is the next town manager, Rick, you're going to be here for 25 years, but in year 26,
24 and 9 months.
The next town manager can throw that all in the bin, burn it, and decide that there's one person per committee. That I just want to put that out there as a possibility.
Yes, that's absolutely right, and it's good to put that out there. The council always does reserve the authority to reestablish committees. Yeah, as Brown Act committees.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Any other questions before we move on to public comment? I lost my connection, so I can't see if anybody on the okay.
We have 4 hands.
Would you call them for me? Well, and
Dale Fowl.
thank you, Dale.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Great. Couple of comments here. As you note, the EPC has chosen or would like to be a non-Brown Act committee, primarily because of the flexibility. We do have 11 members, but we have several who travel extensively throughout the year, and it would be a great service to the committee to have those people be able to vote and attend, count toward quorum at those meetings. However, in reading through this, a couple of very important things come up. Number one, we are the primary safety advisory committee to the town council, and that's stated in our charter, which was just redone last year. If that changes, if that is no longer the case, then I would recommend that it come back to our committee to have a discussion. The second item is, because of the importance of safety and visibility, if we do not have a town council liaison or one is not anticipated, then again, I would recommend that we remain a Brown Act committee and it come back to the full EPC for a continuing discussion before we become a non-Brown Act committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dale. Next hand up is Rita Comas.
Hi there. Since we've been having, this is going to be reset. Okay. Since we've been having meetings on Zoom, I've probably attended, I don't know, probably about 80% of the town meetings that have been on Zoom. And sometimes, of course, the Zoom doesn't work out. But, you know, with this change, there's so much going on in town right now. We're short-staffed. You know, the town manager just said because of the no finance director that he's going to be spending 20% of his time then being the finance director, and then we are short a planning person. And, you know, I think this is something that needs to wait another 6 months to a year. Yeah, it's been talked about for the past year, and I know what the frustration, and I've attended a lot of meetings hearing the frustration concerning the previous town manager, but we have those other items still on the table that need to get done. And all of these committees, it can't be said not one of them doesn't touch on these issues. And the pipeline is the safety element, the electronic communications, the evacuation plan, and infrastructure issues. We already know that part of the town is out tonight. You know, they don't have electricity. And who knows who else doesn't have Comcast has been in and out all day long. And these things need to get done. And if everybody's, if everybody's working on everything at the same time, and there's not a whole lot of accountability back to the town council, the people that we've elected to represent us and have been appointing people to these by a process, what's going to happen also with non-diversity of ideas and of people if the people on these different committees are picking their friends with no oversight on who then gets to be on these particular committees? We don't have a whole lot of diversity in this town. And, hopefully with these 253 homes that are going to be built, we can be a little more welcoming to having different types of people in our lovely town and welcoming them. But, right now it seems like we're doing too much, but not getting things done. I'd say wait 6 months to 1 year to implement this. Nothing against you, Patty. I know you're doing a lot of good work. I appreciate it. But we seem to be just spread entirely too thin, and this will reduce the accountability in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Carolyn Vertonghen.
Thank you, residents who expressed their concerns. We have a system in place. We have a handbook and we have charters. I'm a member of the PPTSC, and I'm sorry, but if chairs don't follow the rules, we don't accomplish anything. And so I encourage you to follow what we have in place. I appreciate Patty Deuce for presenting this, but it doesn't solve it because this is creating an other problem. We first have to resolve all the other issues which we have been fighting for what? How many years? 2017, 2019, nothing gets accomplished because chairs do not follow the process. And I appreciate there's a new town manager, but the town manager has to understand there's a general plan. We have handbooks and we have charters. And everybody, even the new interim town council, has to understand we have to follow procedures. Procedures that were put in place. Nothing has been accomplished due to the lack of following that. And so I encourage the new town council to follow existing procedures. Don't change anything. Follow the procedures and we'll be successful. But it's time that we resolve long ongoing issues. And the primary issue is safety. Town council made this a priority, and it's time that public safety gets resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. I believe that's Christy Corley.
Thank you for taking my comments. I'm wondering if you can answer all of Karen Vatra's questions regarding this. She brought up many, many questions, and I think what's written needs to be revised to include the answers to all of her questions. I thought her public comments and questions need to be resolved before anything is passed. I also feel very strongly that all committees require recordings. This community travels in and out of Portola Valley. We would like to listen to the meetings while we're away and when we get back if we are not able to listen while we're away. It's extremely important that not requiring recordings and recordings be optional, I do not believe that that is where our community should be headed right now. We need to make availability when we're away to listen to any updates of any committee meeting at any time. I am concerned about the historical committee. There are many things in California law that historical sites need to be respected. So I was surprised to see that that one needs to be resolved and included, I believe, in the Brown Act. So let's see. I am concerned about who rewrites the handbook. I think I heard our town manager say it would not be him or the staff. So I'm curious how that would get resolved and who would rewrite this handbook. So I think there's a lot of work to be done before this is passed. And I encourage you to do that work and bring it back to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. David Cardinal.
Hi, well, first, I think this is a huge step forward. So I'm all for it. I'd like to commend Patty, not just for working hard, but for the work that she's accomplished. I think the Brown Act has been an impediment to 17 committees being governed under the Brown Act for a town of 4,000 people is way too much overhead. And for the people who say this is going to make more work, well, it's going to make a lot less work, frankly, for the staff and for the committees. So I think it's great, and I think it'll encourage volunteerism. And I just wanted to get that out there, since some other people seem to be saying we should like hold off for some reason. But I'm all for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. One hand in the schoolhouse, Ellen.
Anyway, Ellen Vernazza, just a quick question, and Sharif, you brought this forward a little bit, but I'm just going by past, not past with your experience, but should one of the committees that is under your leadership, so if you have the discretion of bringing their thoughts to the town council or not, and you said that you would bring both sides, I know you're going to be busy and you can't handle everything, but in the past, some things were not brought to the town council, or things were not, things that say that the committees wanted on their agenda would not be put on the agenda. So is there a process that if the committees feel that you, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, I just am going by things in the past, if you don't pass on their thoughts, is there a process for them to get to the town council? Does that make sense?
Thank you, Ellen. We'll take that feedback and that thought. I do not see any hands up on Zoom or in the schoolhouse, so I will bring it back for council discussion. Anybody want to start?
Well, first of all, Patty, Catherine, Sarah, Craig, thank you for the work. It's been over a year, and I know you've put a lot of work into this, so thank you for that. And thanks to the committee chairs who've worked with you. I agree. This is, with David, I think this is a great step forward. What we have here with 17 committees is really, really unusual in San Mateo County. Most cities have at most maybe 6 or 8 Brown Act committees that work under their council. I mean, we have a lot of committees. I don't want them to go away, but I think making some of them non-Brown Act is a great step, because it really does end up creating a lot of work to keep track of all these Brown Act committees. So there are things that I think there are some details to be worked out. I think the recordings, if the committees want to do it, are good. So I would like to see those continue. It is a nice resource for people who want to follow along. We talked about the new committee handbook. I assume that we're talking about some kind of volunteer-led effort to rewrite that. I think that's, obviously we should talk about how that's going to happen. But given the work that's gone into this, the buy-in you've gotten from all the committees on it, I'm very comfortable with it.
Thank you, Jeff. Mary?
Oh, well, I think it's personally, I like change, and I think this is probably a good change. I think a number of people have sort of gone, whoa, this would be different, and this would be good, and this would be fresh, and we can get more volunteers involved. So I'm excited about it. I agree that every committee, believe it or not, has to have a town council touch person, if that's legitimate, if that's okay. That's not okay.
Yeah, I'll just jump in on because I don't know if this made it into the staff presentation, but the town manager committee should not have a council liaison because that would effectively turn them into Brown Act committees because they would be.
Yeah, and I think a number of the committees don't understand, with due respect, I think they don't understand what the implications of that would be. That they're, to Patty and to, I think that what the committees heard, maybe the chairman understand, but the committees are still behind thinking that it's going to be, that it'll be very much like the way it was before. So that, does that mean I can't show up to those committees? So say race and equity, does that mean I can't go to race and equity meetings?
I guess we would want to look at that. The overarching principle here is that that the town manager committee should not be under the control of the council or established by the council, and they should really be under the purview of the town manager. Now, you as a private, resident of citizen of Portola Valley, you of course are free to, exercise your rights as a private individual. So we could look at whether there's any way we could,
right,
cabin
because then
that.
two of us will show up,
Yeah.
and then we'll be in trouble again.
Well, right, but the idea of the liaison is to report back to council in terms of how your committees are doing, what they're working on, sort of really be the connective tissue between your committees and their work, and that would no longer be an appropriate role. So the liaison role would not be appropriate in the town manager context. Now it might be that if you want to attend or watch the recording, if there are recordings, that's, another option for keeping tabs on what they're doing. And of course, your town manager is reportable to you, ultimately at the end of the day. And that's the ultimate way to, keep tabs.
So that makes it even more important that these committees have both minutes and recordings. And I think minutes, because they're so much easier to read than watching the recordings, are really important, and they should be meaningful. They shouldn't just be necessarily action item minutes. That's my opinion. I'm not sure the two things that I had thought, first of all, I commend you, Sharif, for being willing to do the handbook committee. The committee handbook group is now going to be called, so we can all be really confused or something like that, so that we could get some help with doing that. But I do think you in the end are going to end up having to write it. I'd like to see some flexibility in how this plays out, so that if in fact the Trails Committee says, I really don't want to be a Brown Act committee anymore, they can go ahead and do that if they want, or that we at least have some kind of parameter where every 3 months there gets to be or every year there gets to be a shuffling. If people, maybe it's as simple as having a yearly election for your status. And of course, there's lots of details, but I personally am for going ahead and giving it a shot and seeing how it works.
Thank you, Mary. Craig?
Thank you. So I'm very in favor of the flexibility. I think it's important that we respect our volunteers and we respect the time of our volunteers. I think it's getting a little bit confused that people aren't actually clearly looking at which committees are going in which direction. With the exception of EPC, if you look at the committees that we're talking about being non-Brown Act, it's cultural arts, it's nature and science, it's park and recs, it's race and equity, it's sustainability, and it's the Woodside Highlands Road Improvement District. When people are worried about upcoming safety issues and stuff, I'm pretty comfortable that that group of committees don't deeply impact something like the safety element. Whereas the things that will continue to be Brown Act, the BPTS, conservation, finance, geology, open space, trails and paths, and the wildfire, they all will continue to be Brown Act. So I'm pretty comfortable. I think with the exception of EPC, and I'd suggest that maybe we sort of approve this and at least put a holding pattern on EPC. Dale was the chair for EPC, and he, I think, is realizing that maybe he wants to go back to his committee and have a discussion. And I would be comfortable just not making a decision for EPC, just, you know, holding them out and let them review this. But I feel pretty comfortable with the 6, you know, ones that we're proposing to be non-Brown Act. In terms of minutes versus action items, I'm okay with action item minutes, assuming that there is a recording to go with it. And if a committee chooses not to do the recording, then I think they need to provide, what was the term we used for the minutes that were, they weren't verbatim, there was something in between, but they were more substantive than action. Summary minutes, thank you. So I would like to see if there isn't a recording, that there's at least summary minutes. So I guess that would be my recommendation to the town manager rather than a requirement. And then in terms of sort of revisiting in 6 months, I actually think that's important. And I think we should do it after we have the committee handbook, because then I think everybody will have a better understanding of kind of what is happening. And at that point, the council may decide to move some of these people back to be Brown Act, because that would be in our purview. So I think that's what I would recommend going forward, is that we do move forward and dissolve the 7 committees. I guess we need to find out about the historical resources, whether there's an
I just
impact.
checked. I withdraw my concern.
Okay, then, all right, then.
Just check the general plan. It's lots about what it is, but it doesn't talk
Okay.
about the committee itself.
All right, great. So then I would recommend that that we do go forward with disbanding the 7 committees.
I think it would be 8.
Is it? I think it's 7 because I'm
If
not EPC.
I thought it was 8 without EPC. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Less 1 is 8.
Okay, which one did I? So I missed one. I got that one.
If you look on here,
Yeah, no, I believe so. I got cultural arts, nature and science, park and rec, race and equity, sustainability, and Woodside Highlands.
it's definitely 8.
There are 9 total, on the
Right.
current chart, there are 9 asking
There's
to be
9 less
demoted.
You know,
EPC
I
would be
I
8.
understand that. I believe your numbers are right. I'm trying to understand which one I'm missing, because I want to make sure that what I'm proposing, I'm comfortable with. So I've got cultural arts, you're skipping EPC, nature and science, park and rec. Oh, public works, that was the one I missed. And I'm comfortable with having public works on that list. So that's what I would recommend. I would be comfortable going forward with that. And then we revisit this once the handbook, and we're going to need the handbook to be updated for the Brown Act committees as well as the non-Brown Act committees, and whether that's done sort of together as a group and then they get separated. I mean, I'll leave that to the attorney to figure out the right path through that. So that would be my input on this.
Thank you, Craig. Judith?
Yeah, I'm a little torn. On the one hand, this has been great work. I think it's very logical what's been put into different columns with a couple of questions along the lines of what Craig just noted in terms of which committees get slotted. EPC for me is a question mark. But I think you've done a logical approach, and certainly the Brown Act restrictions are going to be encumbering on town volunteers. There's no 2 ways about it. So I get that, and I really appreciate the thoughtfulness, and I think it's the right general direction to go. My issue is the visibility and transparency. You're asking us to approve dissolution with absolutely no idea what's going to be in place. And I do trust Sharif on how he's describing what his vision is. But let's keep in mind, we are taking powers from the town council and putting them to the town manager. And we don't have an outline for what that looks like. And I assume we can't, right? Because otherwise, if we make tonight's choice with knowledge of what the town manager's handbook would look like, for example, then implicitly we're kind of buying into that. Is that legally the right framework?
I mean, this is I will say we're a little bit in uncharted territory because there are few jurisdictions that have this many committees, as we discussed. And so, you know, we're going with the guidance in the Brown Act that we have. In terms of whether, you know, you could postpone this for more information about, you know, what the town manager plans to do in terms of the handbook, I think you could actually. I mean, this staff report gives actually a lot of detail about what the town manager's current plans are in terms of the structure, with an asterisk or footnote that all components are at the discretion of the town manager and are subject to his or her approval review. And the same would be true for the updated handbook. So the town manager can come forward, you know, will come forward with it as an informational item, but it could change depending on, you know, the town manager and who they are. Yeah.
Yeah. And so say we dissolve them tonight and one of these committees, it's a town manager committee, had the meeting next week, but there's no handbook, and like, are we in trouble of having a gap here without that already in place?
So my understanding of what the town manager's plans are, speak for yourself here, but my understanding is that you would proceed on an interim basis with an existing handbook. So in terms of, you know, the composition of the committees, you know, the agenda setting process, the chair, everything else would be the same status quo. You know, until further notice. Yeah.
Okay. Because the Brown Act is a very troubled law, right? It places ridiculous requirements with the right intent, but the wrong set of triggers. So I completely understand why we want to look at Brown Act, reducing the Brown Act reach for committees that our town really has fostered. So I generally, I agree with that direction. I would, to get more granular, the EPC doesn't make sense to me because it's a pretty important function for the town. And if they came back and said, flexible meeting times are the most important things to me, but we'll keep minutes or something like that, I'd be more comfortable. But I do suggest we go back and let them have another discussion, fully informed by what we're raising tonight as potential issues they should think about. And Public Works, I'm still not sure exactly what their charter is. Do they have, because they do get out there during storms and help us, but in terms of meeting, are they feeding into town council general plan type issues at this point? Do you know?
Sure, if you want to answer that question. I will say from my experience, I would say most communities probably don't have a public works committee.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And they've chosen to go the town manager route. And then we can look at the historic resources. I do want to encourage all, you know, us leveraging all the work that goes on here. Frankly, I'm a little worried that too much flexibility is also not good for predictability on town operations. So while I think there might be a touch point, 3-6 months out, see how it's going, see what the handbook's like, and noting the fact that we can always reconstitute a Brown Act committee later, we have some triggers that we can pull to address issues that we're not anticipating today. I am uncomfortable without what does that look like rubric, but if Sharif is planning to continue on this course until there's replacement documentation, I could get comfortable with that. I strongly think summary minutes or recording have to be there. These should be manageable, and if they become logistically challenging, I would hope there's some problem solving that goes beyond just our minimal minutes. And in terms of someone raised, like, what's the appeal process if Sharif, like, how do we actually make sure that disagreements get escalated? I guess what I would ask is some more thought on that going forward. Like, I wouldn't put that as a criteria for tonight's decision, but how would that be managed if, like, could they independently offer public comment saying, I think you ought to think about this, and then the council could at that moment say, yeah, we want to agendize that in the future. Like, I don't really know what that looks like, but I would want to know what that looks like. Maybe you can circle back. So overall, I want to support this, but those are the things I would ask us all to think about.
Judith? On my part, I would say I'm almost exactly aligned with Craig's comments. And just to kind of hit the key points of that, I'm comfortable pulling EPC from the list for all the reasons, but moving forward, but would support moving forward with the 8 remaining ones. It does seem like there's a lot of consensus around either action minutes with a recording or summary minutes, and really look forward to learning on February 28th what the plan will be for putting together the handbook, which is something that we have been talking about for 18 months. So I'm really looking forward to that. So unless there's any further discussion, anything from you, Sharif, at this point?
If I may just comment, and I'll look to Patty for kind of a nod. I would be comfortable committing, because I think there's a sticky point regarding the recordings. I would ask as town manager that we either continue with Zoom in the interim, or summary minutes, or a recording of the meeting. I personally am leaning towards in the future, and what the most practices are in other cities is the digital recording with a tape recorder. Put in the center of the room and put it, and so it's recorded, and then you have summary minutes attached to that. Zoom in itself becomes cumbersome if there's issues with Zoom and recording and all those different pieces. I would like to see us come away from that. But in the interim, I do believe if a committee is either to do summary minutes or continue on Zoom or have it recorded digitally, that would be my request or direction of the group. So my request tonight of the groups that are being dissolved as Brown Act, if that happens tonight, is to do one of those 3. Is to either continue on Zoom, record it, or have summary minutes so that we can kind of take away some of the ambiguity, so that if there's a meeting in 2 weeks, there's just nothing. Like I don't want to drop to nothing in that interim period, if that kind of makes sense to move forward with that as a commitment.
Makes sense. Any comments on that? And in terms of the resolution, do we need to fill in here the date of the letter that with Patty's that Patty authored?
Yes, and Mayor, that date is December 15th.
Okay, so that would be December 15th there. And then Chair of the Parks and Rec Committee is what Patty Du's role was. So that would get in that blank spot. And then do we want to update item 2 at the bottom of red line 110? Instead of within 6 months, do we want to update that with February 28th?
I think there are 2 different updates. The February 28th is more of the town manager update that I'll incorporate that into my town manager report.
Right.
And I'm giving some of these softer recommendations with then the commitment of within 6 months to come back with a updated committee handbook. And
Oh, okay, that's
other
for the
pieces.
handbook.
Kind of a 2-pronged approach, but I didn't want to wait 6 months, obviously, to give an update. At the same time, give us time to work out some of those details.
Okay, the copy I'm reading just says to get back to the council within 6 months to report back on the status of restructuring. So we're basically, I thought we were saying I'm a little confused on that language, I guess.
If I may, I think you're okay leaving the resolution as is with my verbal commitment to come back on
Okay.
February 28th and my town manager
Perfect.
message on that piece.
Makes it easier. All right, anyone want to take, I'll make a mo.
I have a question on the wording, which is, do we need legally to say as a default, the current operating procedures will apply to these committees until replaced, or do we not need?
I would recommend not saying that for the same reasons that these town manager committees are under the purview of the town manager to determine the.
Should Sharif sometime soon at his discretion say that? I mean, otherwise the committees don't have guidance.
He's gonna do it tomorrow.
If he's, yeah, that's the question.
Well,
That's the
in the staff report, we have the recommendations of what the non-Brown Act committees will do. So there's still agendas to be posted. It's still public. There's still a quorum. The charter doesn't change. All those things are laid out in that staff report. So those are the guidelines, if you will.
in this staff, in the chart.
In the chart, yes, there's a chart that states what's the difference between the Brown Act Committee and non-Brown Act Committee. So the non-Brown Act Committee still have to post an agenda. They still have to have public comment. There are still notes to be taken. They just don't have to post within 72 hours. They can do it within 24 hours. They can allow public comment, they can change their agenda on the fly in a meeting. Those things would apply tomorrow, as a for instance.
I'm mainly focused on the minutes and the like. You just said you want to be very clear on that, and this doesn't say that. So just verbally, are you going to issue guidance to the non-Brown Act committee to operate that way? On the minutes versus Zoom versus recording?
I don't know if that's a legal question or if that's a.
Well, there would be no
I
legal
think
obligation to.
there's a spirit. My expectation is that the non-Brown Act committees would adhere to my request starting tomorrow. I don't know if we need to put that in writing or want to add that to the resolution. That's.
All I'm saying is there's got to be a connection between what you just said and something that goes out to the committees, because it's not in this chart.
So I think that would be direction to the committees when they meet tomorrow, starting tomorrow. And then that can be additional information that would be fed into both the update that you're planning for February 28th, right? Or what the date that you mentioned, as well as a new committee handbook just for the town manager committees. It sounds like maybe you're not ready to answer the question tonight on in terms of
I'm thinking out loud. I'm thinking maybe tomorrow I send out an email to the chairs of the non-Brown Act committee saying, here's the guidance I'd like you to follow.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that makes
That's all I'm
perfect
looking
sense.
for. Yeah.
Okay.
thanks.
All right. Somebody like to put forward, do you have something else, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to make a motion here, but I'm trying to figure out how to craft that we leave the door open for EPC. Like I mean, at least what was given to us originally, I don't know if you updated the most recent, the EPC wasn't on the non-Brown Act. So in that sense, we're kind of pressing that you already did, we're okay. But I was trying to go a little further than that to say that we're giving the EPC an opportunity to meet, discuss this as a Brown Act committee, and then potentially come back and request that we resolve it. So do we need to put that in the resolution, or can we just let this go the way it is and just do have another resolution that dissolves them independently?
Yeah, I don't think you need to change the resolution. I mean, the only language I could think of would say, this does not foreclose the discretion of council to dissolve additional committees in the future, but you always have that discretion.
Okay, perfect. So I just want to make sure, I think this is more to the EPC to make sure that they still feel they have the ability to revisit this question. And then the other was just the 6 months. What I'm hoping is that we will revisit this question within 6 months after the handbook is written. So I'm trying to tie it to the handbook gets done within 6 months and we revisit this question. So there's sort of two things I'm looking for there. So do I need to have that as part of the resolution, or does that, because there's both sides of, there's the Brown Act committee handbook and there's the non-Brown Act. And I'm trying to be careful not to give the town manager any directions on this, but if we're gonna get, if we're gonna review this to decide whether we, the council, should pull this back, which is in our purview, I want to have some sense for when we'll have enough information to know whether we should pull it back. I think that's what I'm looking for. So I think I'm looking for counsel here on, do we need to revise the resolution to do that, or do you feel like it's good enough as is? And
I think it's fine as is because it requires the town manager to report back within 6 months. My understanding is that that is sufficient time, maybe even go do faster than that to really flesh out all of the details that are not just in this chart, but other details that the committees want to know and the public wants to know about how these will be operated. So I think the language works as is.
okay, great.
Okay, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
No, I was just, you said this is uncharted territory. Is there really no other handbook that does this in any other towns in California?
So most jurisdictions do have, committees and commissions, and they have guidelines for running those commissions and committees. But what I mentioned was a bit uncharted, or at least I haven't been able to find a community that's done this, is to, rather than just dissolve committees or merge them to reduce the number, but rather to transform them into a non-Brown Act committee. So that was the piece that is, I think, a little bit unusual. But we've worked extensively on the logistics of it and reviewed carefully the Brown Act itself to make sure that we're following procedures that are consistent with the Brown Act.
So no other town has gotten around to doing a charter like this.
Or
this
has 17 committees.
No.
Not that we're aware of. This is
Yeah.
kind of a unique situation. And so what I'm hearing, and I guess I can commit as your town manager to, one, come back on February 28th with a verbal update of where we stand. Within 6 months, come back with a committee and commission and just handbook or 2 handbooks, however that plays out. And there's a third one, and I lost what that was, but that's my commitment to you. So that does not necessarily need to be in the resolution. And on the email tomorrow. Thank you. The third piece was the email tomorrow providing guidance or expectations of what those groups will do in the interim, which is mostly captured in that chart with a couple nuances to that. So that way tomorrow, the non-Brown Act committees will be clear on their expectations moving forward in the interim. We'll work on the committee handbook, and then we'll come back within 6 months on where we're at.
A clarification, the handbook for the committees. We have Brown Act committees and the town manager. You're going to handle the town manager, but what's the expectation for the town council committees handbook?
I recommend that we update that as well. I think going through this process, we've noted a number of places where there's lack of clarity in terms of committees. What if Brown Act committees want to have someone that zooms in from their hotel on the East Coast? Do we allow for that? Those kinds of details are not fleshed out. And we'll also need to clarify the handbook, which lists, I believe, all of the committees, to say that now this only covers half of them essentially.
But who does that? That's my question.
I'll probably defer to the town manager in terms of the
Ultimately,
workload
it's a
piece.
staff recommendation, but it would come, I would tap into the community for their help on that, and along with Catherine on her guidance. But at the end of the day, it's a staff recommendation, staff report. It would
To
come
the town council.
To the town
right?
council.
So we end up. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does Cal Cities help advise on creating these kind of manuals?
We can certainly take a look, and I can certainly ask around to our colleagues in other cities to see what they have, and we can take a look at their committee handbooks as well. So all that's public information. We'll take a look at and incorporate.
All right. Yes.
So I would move that we accept this resolution with the blanks as filled in by Sarah.
December 15th is the date. And Patty Dews as the chair of the Parks and Rec.
Sarah, does that need to be was there a committee of committees? Well, Patty's formal role speaking for the committee of committees.
She wasn't the chair of the committee of committees. No. Yeah.
Okay. Who is chair?
I mean, Judy Murphy facilitated a couple of the meetings. Yeah, but that was before, yeah. Anyhow, where are we on this motion?
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Jeff. All right. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Else.
Aye.
Councilmember Hefty.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Haskell.
Aye.
Mayor Barnakoff.
Aye. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Patty. Congratulations.
Great work. Thank you.
It's
Perseverance.
so nice to have you as chairman of the handbook committee. Group,
Don't push it.
Group.
Yeah.
group.
Oh, there you go. Building up our goodwill continually. All right, moving on to our next agenda item. Let me get the appropriate name. Oh,
Mayor,
you know
it's
what?
9 o'clock. I would
Oh, you
suggest
know
maybe
what?
we
You're
could-
right. Let's take a little bit of a break. Thank you. Sir, we're on break right now. We just called the meeting. Think we'll. Oh, sure, yes.
Well, yeah.
Into session. We are now on regular agenda item C, and I believe we have a report from interim planning manager John Biggs. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Mayor Wernikoff. John Biggs with your Planning and Building Department. Very short presentation for you this evening. Monday evening, we were hoping to have you consider the Planning Commission's recommendation to adopt your housing element this evening. But Monday evening, when we got an email from HCD, Housing and Community Development from the state of California, and it provided a 3-page document, which was a series of tables that listed out a number of additional changes they would like us to make. So we at the staff level, along with our consultants, have taken a look at that table. We've got a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning with the staff member for HCD, so we can go through and address all of the comments that they are, or the changes that they're requesting we make. Given all of that, given that you haven't had an opportunity to fully evaluate what we're going to be changing, we are requesting that you continue your consideration of the adoption of the housing element to your meeting of the January 24th, so that we can get this all taken care of, make sure we're square with Housing Community Development staff member, and give the public an opportunity to review this as well. So that's our recommendation. Again, very short staff presentation, and we'd appreciate your continuance this evening.
Yep. Questions?
Yeah, so John, I appreciate that, and thank you for getting the meeting with HCD set up quickly. How, so you'll talk to HCD, how is the public going to have an opportunity to weigh back in? Is it basically the Friday before our meeting on the 24th, you'll put out the sort of final proposed and they can comment on that? Or what's the steps between here and the 24th besides your meeting with HCD?
We are going to do our best to get HCD on board with the changes so that we can post the changes on, or revise housing element on the city's website before sending out the packet to the council. So the public does have more than just that Friday before the council meeting to review the document. So we'll be
Thank you.
sending that notice out.
Just so I understand, the revised version that is in our packet tonight is the one that we sort of, HCD was looking at in parallel and we thought was actually going to be fine with them. And so
Yeah.
these comments sort of just come out of left field, and things we didn't
They
expect.
did. We were kind of commiserating yesterday, the planning staff and the consultant team, because they were all things that we thought, if we've been told earlier, we could have had them incorporated into the document. So it's a brand new set of changes that they're requesting that we, again, we're sort of felt like we had the rug pulled out from under us.
Is it more sort of staff discontinuity at HCD? Are they just keep circling the people in? Is that what happened? Or
I don't really, I can't really explain it.
It's just,
It's,
frustrating.
it- it's,
Having
it
gone through
it
the
is
process.
frustrating. And that's one of the issues that we want to bring up with HCD
Yes.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's like,
Mine.
we're ready, and especially we kind of made a big commitment to get this done in front of the planning commission and hopes that we could, hopefully get the council to adopt this on the 24th so that we could get it into HCD before the 31st. We could have the housing element certified.
Thank you.
My question is, how legal is it for them to keep changing?
It's legal. It's HCD until they give us our certification letter. They can.
You follow a set of rules. And there's a recourse if they change the form on.
Yeah, different set of laws, different state or bureaucracy that we're dealing with. And, given, I worked in coastal communities, so we work with the Coastal Commission, and this is kind of parallel to what I've experienced in the Coastal Commission. We think we're going down one path and have done what we, has been requested of us, but then we get a last minute, oh, by the way, you need to do this or you need to change that. So it's. No, it's a state organization. Yeah, it's similar agency to HCD. They have a rule book, but it's subject to interpretation. Best way to put it.
John, just to be clear, had they come in and said, yeah, we stand behind what you've already submitted, we would be tonight looking and saying, yes, potentially.
You would be, yes.
And they came in with many comments yesterday. So you haven't, you've probably been through it once, but you haven't yet finally determined whether there's substantive things that need to change because you're only talking with them tomorrow. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're cautiously optimistic that these are not substantive changes, so we're not going to have to go back to the planning commission. But again, we're kind of reserving that final determination until, I know our consultant team today was going through the comments and they were coming up with how we could address them and a series of questions we would have for HCD, and hopefully we can get that wrapped up tomorrow.
Yeah, because I read a couple of comments and I had no clue. No clue.
They're a bit
On
cryptic.
3 or 4 of them, what they were looking for. And one of them was like a phrase and it wasn't even a verb subject. I
Yeah,
had
I
no idea what they were talking about. So you'll make a judgment call on materiality once you get a better read. If there's something material, then it goes to planning, presumably next week, or do we know?
No, that would be,
Okay.
that would mess up our schedule. if
Okay.
We didn't need to take it to the planning commission because we have to provide a notice 10 days in advance of the
Yeah.
planning commission meeting to comply with all the public noticing requirements. So we're trying to thread a needle and make sure that the changes aren't significant changes so we can keep it in front of the town council.
Okay, so we'll stay tuned for
Yes.
your
we will.
determination. And
We will
report
let you
back.
know if there's a change to having you consider this on the
Yeah.
24th.
Thanks for letting us know so quickly. The timing in some ways is incredibly disappointing, but
It is.
I guess if we had approved it tonight and then gotten that feedback, we'd be
That's
no better.
That's the silver lining if there is one. That's it.
There was
Okay.
only one word I understood in the grid, which is transparency. What was that? Transparency, right? In the middle of I think you have a question mark. Right?
I think they want us to make it clear in the document, the housing element, that we will be reaching out to the community and some of the efforts in the element. So I thought it was clear, but there's maybe we need to use that term back on them.
John, if you, after reviewing it, you deem it is important that it go, or that it must go before planning commission, is there any path to do that that still enables us to adopt by January 31st? One thought that had come to mind as a joint council planning commission meeting. I'm just trying to
It's-
figure out, like, can we think ahead on exhausting all possible avenues to try and to try and hit 131?
I think possibly with the special meeting of either the planning commission or town council, it's possible to get this adopted and into HCD. The challenge with having a joint meeting is that the notice must include the recommendation of the planning commission
Oh, so it
and
doesn't
the
help.
vote. And if you're having a joint meeting, then you can't fulfill the notice requirements.
And just to circle back, Catherine, just at the highest level, there probably is some recourse in administrative law, but no one ever does that, and it's not a well-trodden path, so not very.
I agree with that.
viable.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you go, I'm just kind of curious, like, when you're meeting with them, do they acknowledge at all that they've put us in this pickle? You know, they basically have said, you know,
We're going to ask that question of them, whether or not they're going to acknowledge it, but we will bring that up to them because it has put us in a pickle. And, you know, I'm standing here in front of you, you know, based on taking some actions based on what they told us the last time we met with them, and we took a certain path, and now that path is shifted a little bit, and that's not a good place to be standing in.
yeah.
I don't think so. I don't want to speculate on why this has happened the way it has.
The questions?
Okay.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We can go to public comment. We have one, excuse me, just for the people on Zoom, we have one comment from the schoolhouse. If you come to the microphone so they can hear you.
Dr. Martin Miller, 3350 Alpine Road. I understand that every municipality is under state mandate to increase housing. And I would certainly prefer to help with a solution as to be in opposition. I even thought that my property, which has approximately 1 level acre at the elevation of Alpine Road, for development. I demolished a termite and rat-ridden barn a year ago, August, and had the plan to build a 2-bedroom ADU there, but I cannot move forward with that with the current proposal to have a 50-unit development directly across the street from my home at the Dorothy Ford open space. I would consider offering my property, obviously at current market value, for a multi-unit development, and that would preclude having to remove 2 400-plus-year-old oak trees on the Dorothy Ford open space and try to build something that is rated as an active mud shallows on the town geologic map that has a tributary to the Hanson Fault running right through it and is yards away from Las Vegas Creek, a watershed that just downstream becomes noted as San Francisco Creek and flows directly into the bay. It sounds like the housing element's going to be postponed until the 31st. Just wanted to offer those comments. It's not cost effective to build anything on that piece of land, and it would of course set a precedent of revoking something that was bequested to the town in 1971 as an open space. It would permanently change what was thought to be by the donors in perpetuity as an open space for the public. I'll leave my comments at that, but
Thank you. We have a couple hands up on Zoom. I believe it's Carolyn Bertongan. Carolyn? Looks like you're still on mute, Carolyn. All right, I think we'll go on to the next hand and we can come back to you, Carolyn. Rita Comas.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. At the last planning meeting, it was talked about that document, a draft was sent in December to HCD. But we had an open time for the residents to comment, and that was up till January 12th at 5 p.m. And many residents did comment. And so the comments that we're receiving now, are they from that draft that was sent in December? Or was it updated after the residents put in their comments on the 12th? And that is what this document is being commented on. It's just not very clear which document or which edition these responses are coming from. And I understand that there are some extra responses that probably were not in other drafts, but I'd just like to know if the residents' comments are reflected, were added, or considered in this particular draft. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. It looks like Carolyn's back on. Carolyn? Carolyn, are you there? I think we will, doesn't seem like you're there, so we will move on. I don't see any additional hands in the schoolhouse, so hold on. Actually, one came up. Bob Adams.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, is it possible to schedule the planning commission meeting as a backup plan, just to make sure that you have enough time to get the planning commission meeting in, followed by a town council? That's my comment.
Thank you, Bob. With that, I will bring it back to discussion. Anybody want to start? We'll see.
So we're not taking action. So this is,
Right, exactly. I don't think there's, it is what it is.
yeah, no, I don't think I mean, I don't feel the, I mean, we'll clearly be discussing this at some point in the future. So I don't really feel the need to get into a lot of detail of it now. I mean, other than to say, it's just, you know, we spent 3 years on this trying to comply in a way that was, I thought, transparent and, you know, in the spirit of the process, and just, I don't know. I was hoping for, I was hoping for better from HCD. For me, it's frustrating. There's a lot of people put a lot of work into, you know, the best possible outcome we could come up with. That's all.
Is the question okay?
We're in discussion, but.
Oh, well, I would just sort of like to hear what the answer to Rita's question was.
The HCD comments were based on the December version of the housing element that we provided to HCD. And we did give HCD all of the public comments that we received by, I think it was the 12th or the 7th or 12th of December.
So they were received.
They were received, yeah.
Yeah, and they were received by HCD. Not only were they were verbatim given to HCD. I don't have anything to add, except disappointment and confusion. And wondering when we're going to get this. I mean, this is so much just the first step. We
Right.
can't even take the first step.
Right. Anything to add at this point?
I don't know if Bob Adams' suggestion of a backup plan for the planning commission, I'll leave you to consider that. Please consider it. Yeah, I mean, at some point I think there's only still 3-ish jurisdictions in San Mateo County that have gotten approved. You know, I have no doubt that HCD is probably overwhelmed and they've had a lot of turnover. So on a human level, okay, but on a jurisdictional level, on an expense level, on a community level, this type of, on the one hand, if they're not substantive and easily corrected, you gotta wonder what the value in submitting comments at this point is. And if they are substantive, after all the discussions we've had, with really good faith efforts at great personal and literal cost to the town, it's so disappointing. And I know we're not the only jurisdiction that shares it. And I just wish there were a means to have that communicated. And, you know, I trust you to just have the right conversation at the right time. But I think we're not alone here, and it's just very disappointing. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add my comments about my disappointment as well, that the letter was super disappointing and frustrating. And I just, given the size of our small town, the process has had an outsized impact on our overall operations, our staff, and our budget. And having worked on the housing element for literally almost 3 years, I know we're a community that is working in good faith toward adoption and certification. And so despite this week's setback, it's personally still my goal to try and get to adoption on January 31st, so we can turn the page and focus our efforts and limited resources on actual implementation. We're 1 year into our 8-year cycle at this point, and the clock is ticking. And so I just want to thank John, Adrian, and all the staff. You guys, I know you're under the 8 ball now, those next couple critical weeks, and just want to thank you in advance for all your hard work, because it's just obviously a really frustrating process. So thank you. That's it.
We will need a motion to continue.
Oh, we do? Okay. Would somebody like to put forward a motion to continue this agenda item?
And it should be to a date certain, which is
January 24th.
January 24th. Thank you.
Yes, we already closed public comment.
So move.
Second.
Councilmember Alves.
Aye.
Councilmember Hefty.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Haskell.
Aye.
Mayor Veronicoff.
Aye. All right, that closes our regular agenda. John and Adrian, thank you very much. Yes.
Good luck tomorrow.
Yeah, good luck. We can move on to council liaison committee and regional agency reports. Does anybody have any oral reports that they'd like to share?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or you mean because we don't have any on our.
Well, we'll,
agenda?
you know, we'll have fewer. Yes. Do any council members have any oral reports that they'd like to give? I see shaking heads no, so I'm going to assume no. So we would go to public comment on that agenda item. I don't see, we have,
I could give
oh.
an oral report from geologic safety if you want. Basically that, I don't think we got it in time. They're working on a really terrific version of a geologic evacuation weak spots map. And they've done a great job. It has a number of things that they're still trying to clarify, and they haven't gotten their final recommendations. But they've identified significant places of significance where we just need to pay attention at a time of evacuation, because they're vulnerable either by flooding or by earthquake movement. So I think that they're really trying to do a terrific job at providing knowledge, local knowledge, that you may not be able to get any other way, that the Putnam Charters may not have. So it's been very interesting to watch them do this. And the maps are absolutely stunningly beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
And then race and equity, I would say, was duly, yes, there was a sort of a semi-celebration of the last meeting. But they were clearly quite confused about what it was going to be like on the other side of the divide. So I'm sure they'll be looking forward to that.
Right. Public comment on liaison reports. Sorry. I think I saw there was one hand up. Carolyn Bertongan, this is for public comment on the liaison agency and regional agency reports. Carolyn? There you go. Are you there, Carolyn?
Well, unfortunately, again, there's a communication error. So I don't appreciate that I was not able to comment on the previous comments or the previous comment topic. This continues to be an issue, and we have asked as residents to resolve this, and town council has not done anything. So what is the topic right now?
Carolyn, I will permit, because you weren't able to get through, you are the only person tonight that seemed to have that problem, but if you would like to give your public comment.
No, I'm not the only problem. No, I'm not the only one. We are very frustrated as residents. And like the residents started the community meeting tonight, you know, you are asking for a lawsuit. Well, you will get it, because nothing has been done to resolve the issues. It's really sad that we have come to this, because nothing gets resolved. You're not following the handbook. You're not following the general plan. You're not following the charters that are existing. And now you have a new town manager who seems to be able to just wipe this all out and do new rules. This is not how we work.
So Carolyn, I am going to
We are
interrupt you
a
because you either
community-
need to be speaking on this agenda item or the preceding one. So do you have a comment on
Well,
either?
you
We need, in fairness to those people that do follow the procedures, I need to be consistent. I'm sorry.
I have tried. You lock us out. You just prevent us from speaking out at the time we want to speak out. And I'll
Okay.
leave it at that.
Thank you, Carolyn. Christy Corley.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you can give us an update on the Hawthorns, what they're working on for the meeting at the end of February. And if you could give us the date and time. This is of interest to the residents as they are developing where the parking would go for 50 cars. You know, if there would be an overflow onto Alpine Road is a real concern, because we did notice with Windy Hill on the 1st of January that there was an overflow, a large overflow on Portola Road. So this is of interest. If you could keep us appraised as to every detail that, you know, have you talked to the Hawthorns committee? What has been said? What are you working on with them? Please give us updates on this. And then I also noticed that Jeff Alves went to a dinner. If he could report back on what he learned from, it was a Colma fire something dinner. If you could report on those, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
I'll answer that. That was the annual Council of Cities. It's the City Selection Committee. The minutes, it's public. We selected a handful of, we just filled a handful of positions, county positions on various committees. I actually don't remember all of them because I don't have the agenda in front of me, but it's an annual meeting. It's the only business on the agenda is to fill several county level committees.
Next hand is Rita Comas.
Hi, I didn't attend the Race and Equity meeting last night, but I saw on their agenda, excuse me, that they were going to not plan for Martin Luther King's birthday on the 15th, but to plan in April, possibly something to surrounding his murder, the killing of him in the celebration with music. And, you know, every year ask what is going on for Martin Luther King Day. And there's nothing planned. It seems to be a surprise every year. And Black History Month is February. And so far, we haven't had anything in this town concerning Black History Month. But on Monday morning at 10 a.m., anyone that wants to meet me at 10 a.m. in front of the library that's going to be closed, I will be reading Martin Luther King's speech and giving a little background of his biography and suggestions for people to do things not only in the community, but throughout the year, the service, such as the way that Martin Luther King lived. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
I can comment on the Race and Equity meeting, which I did attend, and that was discussed, and very regretfully, they did not have the bandwidth to do the appropriate work for Martin Luther King Day, because schools are closed, libraries closed, as you mentioned, but it was just a bandwidth issue for that committee, but they did agree to get out a list of activities that reflected the values of Martin Luther King's work for the day, things that people could do. And they were going to reach out to the schools and make sure that that activity was, that they had brought in all the things that they had publicized, the things that the school was working on as well. So I think your intent, Rita, was appreciated.
Thank you, Mary. All right, I think that's it for public comment, and on to our final agenda item, which is adjournment. So motion to adjourn. First and second, there we go. Thank you, everybody.